Welcome back to the Queer Stoic Podcast, where a trans man and aspiring Stoic attempts to make the sense of the cosmos, unravel sanity with a touch of insanity, and navigate this crazy world we live in. This is the final week of the 4 virtues of Stoicism, ending with justice. Now that I am no longer under the influence of allergy gremlins, this should be a full-length episode. Justice is an ideal which instills a sense of overall kindness, fairness, and responsibility towards the community around you, and even, in some situations, humanity as a whole. There will be a lot of mention to acting in accordance with nature in this episode, which is a very common theme in Stoicism. The general idea is that nature is the natural order of things around us. Naturally, the world is a virtuous place. The actions of others within it are what make it seem not so much. Going against nature would create a negative impact on the world around you, such as hate, violence, etc. This is not necessarily legality-based, it is more like the natural order of the universe, something beyond the physical. Even laws created by those in power can be against nature, obviously. So don't align Stoic justice with legal framework, so to speak. It is beyond that. Once again, thank you for listening, and on with the show! A deeper definition of justice. Stoic philosophy views justice as a fundamental virtue, intertwined with reason and natural law, extending beyond legal frameworks to encompass fairness, kindness, and a sense of universal interconnectedness. It's not just about punishment or upholding the law, but about acting in accordance with virtue and contributing to the well-being of the community. Some key aspects of Stoic justice: virtue and reason. Stoics believe justice is rooted in reason and living in accordance with nature, which dictates that we should act virtuously and contribute to the common good. The Stoic ideal of justice is less about legality and more about social justice, if I were forced to put it into a single sentence. It is much more complicated than that in reality, but that is the simple gist to get us started. Legal justice is, of course, important, and I'll talk more on that in a bit, but as a whole, it, meaning legal justice, is not the same as Stoic justice. Interconnectedness. Stoicism emphasizes that all humans are part of a larger whole, interconnected and interdependent. This understanding fosters a sense of responsibility towards others and a motivation to act justly. As humans, we may be separated by invisible lines in the ground that dictate where certain territories end and begin, which doesn't make us any different than other humans at our core. In the end, we are all connected. Stoic justice emphasizes this and takes into account that connection of all humans as a common species, and takes it a step further. We are all individually responsible for putting good into the world, feeding positive action and intent in, and filtering negativity out. Each person, regardless of their position in life, has the capacity to make meaningful change because we are all connected in the first place. Kindness and fairness. Justice involves treating others with kindness, fairness, and respect, recognizing their inherent worth and striving for equitable outcomes. Notice I said equitable. There is a difference between equality and equity. Equity more closely aligns with what we all want, individuals being seen as that, individuals with different needs, limitations, opportunities, and experiences. Equity takes all of that into account when searching for inputs to drive an equal input for all. Justice like that as well, taking into account the other people and giving room for their unique positions in life to offer kindness and fairness to them in a given situation. Truth and courage. Stoic justice also encompasses speaking truth to power, meaning regardless of the consequences we face for it, we should always speak the truth, even if it were to upset the powerful person we say it to. There are many a thing I'd like to say to a certain tangerine, but I am not where he is and doubt I would be able to get close enough to speak with him in the first place. Anyway, standing up for the rights of others and acting courageously in the face of injustice is one of the most notable aspects of Stoic justice. I mentioned last episode that courage and justice as virtues go hand in hand more often than the others, and this is what I was referencing. Beyond legal definitions. As I mentioned before, avoid a common pitfall of the virtue of justice being synonymous with legal justice. While we Stoics acknowledge the importance of law and order, and obviously there needs to be law and order to conduct ourselves as a society as whole, however, our Stoic concept of justice as a virtue to live by extends to all aspects of life. It's beyond the limitations of the legal systems in place. These extensions include personal conduct, social interactions, and relationships with family and community. Compassion and forgiveness. Stoic justice includes a capacity for compassion and forgiveness, recognizing the imperfections of human nature and the potential for growth and redemption. This one has been difficult for me in the past. I used to be a much more quick to anger, lacked the capacity for forgiveness in certain situations, and to a degree this is still true, though not nearly as severe. It's still a work in progress. Justice versus revenge. The difference between justice and revenge is simple but powerful. At its core, justice is that which we practice for the good of all. Revenge is what we do for ourselves alone. Revenge is a dangerous slope to fall down. I have tasted the bittersweet fruit of revenge, and it did far more harm than good for not only the person I acted against, but myself as well. It cost me time, friendships, relationships, money, and morality. I used to think revenge was the answer. I thought it was a combination of justified punishment and a lesson to whomever I was taking revenge against. I thought maybe if I enacted what I used to think was justice upon who had slighted me, they would think twice before doing it again, or to someone else. I suppose even in my villain era, as I like to call it, I was still a humanitarian, if a bit skewed on the concept at the time. That point in my life has been described as chaotic good alignment. Intention was positive, but the methods were morally questionable. I won't go into detail of how and why I thought revenge was the same as justice. It's a bit much and not something I like reliving. I have done my best to work through the issues and trauma where my taste for revenge came from, and it is still a process. A practice of wisdom, if you will, to remind myself daily not to act on my first thought, but to internalize and breathe first, then focus on my second thought, the one that speaks truth instead of intense emotional triggers that ultimately leads me down a rabbit hole I prefer to steer clear of now. A passage I often return to when my anger tries to get the best of me, The soul does violence to itself when it turns away from any man, or even moves towards him with the intention of injuring, such as are the souls of those who are angry. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, Book 2, page 26. It offers me comfort and reminds me of Stoic justice, which is where I like to keep my mindset most of the time. If you are an individual who prefers to act on your first thought, I encourage you to think and focus on your second thought, the one based in reason and compassion, instead of anger and revenge. Justice and the LGBTQ+ community. Epictetus had this to say as far as justice. Who are you? In the first place, a human being, which is to say a being possessed of no greater faculty than free choice, with all your other faculties subordinate to it, choice itself being unconfined and independent. Discourses and Selected Writings, Book 2.2, Section 10, Line 1, page 95. This is from the section entitled Social Roles as a Guide to Conduct. We are all of us human. We are, as Epictetus put it later on in the section, citizens of the universe, meaning we take our place in the natural order of the universe as its governance, not servants to it. In this context, governance is not control. It is more like a caretaker, someone who understands the nature of whatever they care for, be that humans, animals, tiny humans, or plants. A caretaker understands the nature of their charges and doesn't seek to control them, but cultivate and guide them to grow. Tying this back into the LGBTQ+ community, we have our social roles within our community and how they pertain to the universe as well. Epictetus gives us examples of the roles: citizen, son, and brother. These three roles culminate into creating the social rules all humans should live by to maintain their sense of justice and being a productive member of society. Now, even though this is using gendered language, please keep in mind these writings are from over 2,000 years ago, so we must take the terminology with a grain of salt and examine the deeper meaning to interpret for the modern era. Let me rephrase these social roles into something a little more interesting. Universal citizen. At the top tier as citizens of the universe, as they are described by Epictetus, we are responsible for maintaining the natural order of the universe, with reason and virtue leading the way. Again, I stress that we are not meant to control what is not within our control. We are meant to lead our own lives in virtue and reason, to influence change by changing ourselves and what we have the capacity to change with our actions. I understand this can sound fanciful and unrealistic, especially in today's geopolitical climate across the world because of a walking tangerine. That is as political as I'm going to get in this episode, I promise. But back to the point. This is not necessarily fanciful or unrealistic. It is simply a different way of looking at how we affect change in the world. We don't need to hold public office or be rich beyond reason to affect change. The small acts, when grouped together, can enact powerful change. For example, peaceful protests. Protests, when done properly and peacefully, can be more annoying than anything, but also concerning to those in power, and that annoyance and concern drives change. Universal scions. As a synonym for offspring, I thought this would be an interesting notion. We are the scions of our queer ancestors. We are building upon their journeys and struggles and carving a pathway for future generations of queers. Lastly, universal kindred. This one isn't a synonym, but a term unique to Stoicism as far as I have noticed. In this context, it is like kinfolk. We are all kindred to each other, meaning we are interconnected, not by blood, but by reason and our species as humans. We are all human, regardless of how we identify in terms of gender or sexuality, how we're born into different creed or race, and as humans, we are all connected to each other by reason. It is our reason that sets us apart from wild animals. It is our reason that gives us the ability to articulate our identity in the first place. All this to say that Stoic justice, as it pertains to the LGBTQ+ community, is, at its core, the ability to use reason to stand up for what is right and just, for the common good, whether that be for the members of our community, our allies, even those that are against us. We must maintain reason and stand up for the righteous actions. Justice and the other virtues. In Stoicism, justice is not an isolated virtue, but an unifying force that directs and gives purpose to the other three cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, and temperance. We Stoics believe that true virtue requires all four to work together, as they are a single, unified expertise in living well. For Stoics, justice is defined as our duty to our fellow human beings and society, grounded in the belief that all people are interconnected. The interconnectivity of justice and the other virtues are as follows: justice and wisdom. Wisdom, or practical knowledge, guides us to understand our place in the universe and make sound judgments based on reason. Justice provides a specific application for that wisdom to act virtuously in social situations. A Stoic doesn't just know what is good, they apply that knowledge to act for the common good. Wisdom informs the just person what is right, fair, and beneficial for the entire community. Justice and courage. Courage is the fortitude to face challenges and act rightly in the face of adversity, fear, or pain. Justice ensures that courage is used for a virtuous purpose rather than for reckless or selfish ends. For the Stoics, true courage is championing the cause of right, even when it is difficult or dangerous to do so. Justice and temperance. Temperance is the practice of moderation and self-control, ensuring that desires and impulses don't lead to excess. It relates to justice by restraining selfish impulses that would lead a person to take more than their fair share or act unjustly towards others. A temperate person avoids the extremes of excessive pleasure or anger, which allows for clear-headed, just action. This self-restraint is necessary to act for the common good, rather than being driven by personal wants. The unifying role of justice the social foundation aspect, the Stoics saw humans as social animals with a duty to contribute to the well-being of the wider community. This belief, referred to by the Greek term sympatheia, the mutual interdependence of all things, made justice the social expression of all the virtues. The queen virtue. The Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius considered justice the most important virtue and the source of all the others. This view highlights that the practice of all other virtues is ultimately in service of treating others with respect, fairness, and compassion. Lastly, the hive and the bee. Marcus Aurelius famously wrote, "What injures the hive injures the bee." This quote perfectly illustrates the Stoic understanding of justice. When you act justly, you are not only helping others, but you are also aligning yourself with the rational nature of the universe. In hurting others through injustice, you ultimately harm yourself. We come to a close for this episode and the end of the 4 virtues, at least as they are individually, of course. Here's the journal prompt for the week. Justice is about forgiveness as much as it is caring about humanity. Meditate on the things which you are holding on to as grudges, personal slights, insults. Jot down names if you wish or don't, but focus on forgiveness of these actions and let them go as best you can. Journalize how it makes you feel to let go, even if you only let go of one thing. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to drop me a follow at the socials or visit the website link in the show notes for updates. Or reach out. I check my messages and emails daily. Hit that donation link in the description if you are able, so I can keep making content and feed my slightly concerning caffeine addiction. Tune in next week for an exploration of the Stoic Handbook. More on that next week, I promise. Bye.